Hey Rip fam, how's everyone doing? I know we've been posting a little less than we'd like to lately, but with all this COVID stuff going on and this little thing right here, life's been a little bit crazy, huh?
Yeah, we're kind of like zombies right now. Obviously, we're doing this at night with the best lighting because our schedules are crazy trying to adjust to being new parents, so.
But it's been fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this video, we wanted to talk about labor and delivery and just the process, and someone had a great suggestion of hearing Matt's side of it too instead of just mine, so I'm just going to share that journey with you guys.
It all kind of started off in the middle of the night. Lindsay waking me up and saying, "Hey, I'm having contractions. I think it's time to go." And it was what, like 7 o'clock?
Yeah, that was in the middle of the night, but.
Well, she was doing it all in the middle of the night, but she woke me up then. She's a trooper and waited, didn't want to go. We were fearing going to the hospital and then them turning us around. And then with this whole COVID thing, we just wanted to be like a one and done kind of thing. So we hustled up to the hospital. We went in there. They checked our temperatures and all stuff, made sure we were all in the clear. And then as soon as we got to the first like little bay area.
The triage.
Yeah. Yeah, the bay I think is for like vehicles.
To see if I was actually in labor.
Yeah, and I think you're at a 4?
Yeah, I was dilated to a 4. I was having contractions.
They seem pretty intense.
Yeah, so it was Friday morning when I started having contractions. Friday at 3:30 in the morning, and that's when I started having like pre-labor contractions, and I had a doctor's appointment. So I had those all night, all morning. I had my doctor's appointment, and Friday at 10, and I had a couple. What is the word? Maybe it was contractions where I was like, there's no way I could drive. So luckily Matt was able to go to the appointment with me.
Yeah.
And, we were getting kind of excited, and we brought our hospital bags. Like maybe they'll just send us straight to the hospital on Friday. And we get there, and they hooked me up to the non-stress test just to see, because I was 2 days overdue at this point, or 1 day overdue at this point. I just wanted to check on Mallory, make sure she was okay. And based on that, I was having like pre-labor contractions every 2 to 3 minutes, but they weren't the full contractions. And I was dilated to 1.5 at that point. And so he stripped my membranes, really stripped my membranes. And I'm glad he did, because I think that got it going. And then I had those pre-labor contractions all day, and I had them all night Saturday, or all night Friday, all day Saturday morning. Saturday at 7 a.m. is when I woke him up. We went to the hospital. Now we're at triage.
Yeah. And from there, she was like ramping up in like really high contractions that would last for, well, I can't remember how long, but it sounded horrible, however long it was. And she's like, "Hey, I'm in a lot of pain." And from just walking from the bottom, the triage, to our room where she would be delivering or be getting the baby, you went from like a 4 to a 7 in like the 30 minutes it took to get up there. So it makes a lot of sense why she was, if anyone understands or has, had a baby before, that you can probably understand what that means. And she was in a lot of pain, so much pain, you started wanting to
I threw up
everywhere.
And there's so many people just asking me all these questions. I'm just trying to breathe through this contraction. And they're like, "Hey, you can get your epidural now. We have a really good guy. He's only going to be here for a little bit longer, so if you want it, you need to get it now. Otherwise, it will be this other person who's still good, but not as good as Craig." And so I wanted to try to eat, because I hadn't been eating because my contractions were making me so nauseous. And once you get the epidural, you can't eat. So I tried to eat half a banana, and I just started throwing up.
Yeah.
And it was very miserable. And I guess at some point my water had broke. I literally had no idea. I was not expecting it to be a gush of water, because I heard some people, say it's just like a trickle. They felt like they might have peed their pants. I didn't have anything like that. And they said my water had broke during the middle of the night. And
us working out so much, we're just used to sweaty bottoms.
So I had no idea. But I guess when your water breaks, the contractions hurt even more so. So that's probably why it was even more intense at this point.
Yeah.
So I was dilated about a 7, and that's when I got the epidural. The guy that did it was phenomenal. I wish I could request him every single time, because I have scoliosis. It's not as intense as it used to be. Like when I was in high school, it was a lot more severe.
Ever since you started lifting a lot.
Yeah, when I started working out, I feel like the muscles helped to straighten it out. It's not completely better, but it's a lot more. So he was saying with the epidural and the scoliosis, it might be a little bit tricky. It might work more so on one side than the other, but the only part that I felt is they numb you with lidocaine first, and it burned. It burned pretty bad, but it went away super quick. And then after that, I didn't really feel anything.
Yeah, they asked me to hold her. She leaned right here while she had to hunch over like a turtle or something.
Like a cat.
Cat.
Like a turtle. Do turtles hunch?
I don't think they hunch, but they look hunched. All right. Their shell. And she had to sit there, and I just kept. You feel as a man in these scenarios, and those who have children have been in these scenarios, you don't feel super useful. I know I didn't feel very useful, although anytime the nurses who were amazing, they asked me to help in any shape, way, or form. I tried to do my best. Whether I'm doing it right or wrong, I'm pretty confident regardless. So I held her, and I just kind of kept reminding her what the things that the guy that was giving her, the anesthesiologist was giving her the epidural, and I kind of remind her, hey, relax your back, tuck your chin, keep
I
breathing.
think you're supposed to put your shoulders down. You're supposed to try to relax. There's a lot of small things you're supposed to do that was really hard to remember when you're having contractions. So it was really nice to have him just sit there and repeat those things to me.
Yeah, she did mention that later, hey, that was comforting and nice. So if any other men who haven't had babies yet, maybe if you haven't tried that, try it. Yeah, pretty nice. After the epidural, shoot, it was smooth sailing after that.
Yeah, it didn't take very long for it to kick in. And then once it did, he told us too that, it would work more on one side than the other. So they would just keep flipping me from side to side and let gravity kind of flow into the other side. It's about every 20 minutes they would come and flip me over and over.
I thought it just numbed everything, but it can move side to side. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so because of my scoliosis, I felt it more on the right side. Not a huge difference. I don't think it would have made a huge difference to me when it came time to push, but when they flipped me side to side, it helped a lot.
Yeah. But leading up to that point, it was very horrible just to be a part of the process of, someone yelling and she wasn't
yelling.
Sorry, that was the
I'm not
next
that dramatic.
Someone so much and that you love that's in lots of pain. It's never probably a very good experience for anyone to see. And you want to do something for them, but you can't really. It's just part of the process. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, why did we get pregnant? What was I thinking? But once we got the epidural, we just kind of it was so much better. It was like, next time, honey, we're gonna go at a 2 and get you then, and then we can just chill out the other 8 points or whatever. They probably don't go by points, right?
No. It's dilated by centimeters, but so it sucked at this point because I'm super hungry. It's been over 24 hours since I ate. It's 48 hours since I had slept. But now that I have the epidural, I can't eat, even though I feel amazing. So I start to get a headache, and my blood pressure is really low because I haven't eaten because of the epidural. So they check your blood pressure. They keep the cuff on the whole time. And since it was so low, it kept going off to alert the nurses. So she came in every 10 minutes to turn that alarm off.
Eventually, I started doing it.
And then they gave me 2 doses of a certain medicine. Sorry, our dogs are super needy since we've had Mallory. They haven't had as much love, so. Anyways, they gave me medicine to try to get my blood pressure up, and it just wasn't working. But since I felt fine, I didn't look like I was going to pass out. They were just like, it is what it is. So at this point, the doctor told us, I'd probably dilate 1.5 centimeters per hour. Is that what it was? Or something like that. So it took me about 3 hours to go from 7 to 10. And after that, you have to feel pressure down there before you can start pushing. Ooh.
Oh, she farted.
Our dog just busted. Get out of here. He's so small.
That is terrible, dog.
Anyways, so you have to feel pressure down there before you can start pushing. And I didn't feel pressure, and they kept checking. And at this point, she was sunny side up. So they had me lay with a peanut ball.
My favorite egg.
What?
Sunny side up.
Oh.
My favorite egg.
Gross. Don't like her money. Anyways, they had me lay in a certain position to hopefully flip her around, and it kind of worked. She flipped halfway, so at that point.
Anyways, we pretty much just chilled until the baby was ready to go, and then they're like, "Hey, let's put her in the stirrups and all that fun stuff," and then the nurses came over and said, let's get some practice pushes, and we started going for it. And she's like, oh, this baby's about to come. Let's get the doctor in here, and he's going to take all the credit. And that was pretty funny. And everything worked out great. And
It took about 30 minutes from when I started pushing to get her here. And there was one point where, it was about 30 minutes of pushing.
a lot less than
Yeah.
that.
It went really quick, but it was about 30 minutes. And there was one point where her head was like semi out, but I wasn't having a contraction,
Yeah.
so I couldn't push.
She just chilled there.
That made her head kind of elongate, if you will. And so the first time I saw her after she was born,
She just said, is that how her head's going to be? And
I was pretty scared. It looked like the Predator where it just like stretched really far back. But it is almost normal now, so I can love my child. Not gonna lie, I was really scared when I saw her. So it was, we got to the hospital. We left at 7, got there at 7:30. I can't remember exactly when I got the epidural. It was pretty soon after that, and then started pushing like at 3 and had her at about 3:30. So
Yeah.
it's a fairly quick day. We're feeling really good at this point. Doctor tells us, you'll probably be able to leave at noon the next day. She had other plans for us.
Sadly.
So she came back Coombs positive. When they told us this, that I got really freaked out. They made it seem like this huge deal that she could have jaundice and be anemic and need a blood transfusion. And I'm just like, what the heck? You explained it very well, just what had happened. So.
Not only was she Coombs positive, was at first this big ordeal. Well, it wasn't a big ordeal, but they just wanted to run some tests to make sure, hey, because what that means is basically her blood and Lindsay's blood like didn't match or aren't working well or whatever. So that's why I guess she was positive for Coombs. And then those other potential riskier things could happen, but thank the Lord, none of those things happened. And in fact, we kind of just forgot about the whole Coombs thing. They kept watching her jaundice levels, and they're like, hey, everything seems normal and fine. You guys are good to go. But our little sweet Mallory decided not to take a poop for like ever. And imagine you're already stuck. You can't ever leave this room because of COVID, so you're stuck in it. This is from my perspective. And I'm kind of going mad. I'm not saying I'm like a social butterfly or anything, but you want to stretch your legs and you can't really do that. And you're kind of just stuck in this little room, and us men get this small little bench, which I'm not trying to compare or complain, because obviously the woman goes through a much more difficult scenario, but my back was murdering me. I was not, it was probably more the mental thing. I think I took like 12 showers and 20 baths when there was a bath in there.
Yeah, like 20 minutes later, I'm going to take another shower. I'm like about to lose my mind. I'm like, you just showered.
Yeah, I was so bored. I mean, the baby sleeps a lot too, and then she wants to sleep, and I felt like the best thing that the husband can do at that time, or the father, is try to be awake when she wants to sleep, and watch the baby when she tries to get some rest. So I try to do my best to do that, and cool, the baby needs to feed and whatnot, so I'm just gonna hurry and get a snooze in real quick, and then I'll make sure I'm awake when she wants to go to sleep, when we're in that hospital setting. And I think that worked out pretty well. She did a really great job. Like I said, the only problem was she wasn't going to the bath. She was going pee a ton, but not pooping. And I swear we shoved so much food into her belly. I don't know how she held it that long.
Yeah, she kept eating. She wasn't fussy. She was peeing. We tried doing little rubs on her tummy. We tried doing bicycle kicks. They tried sticking a probe up there. They tried wiping her rectum with a wet wipe.
I did that too.
And the nurse did too. Yeah. No, you did it with a warm cloth. She did it with a wet one. Trying to stimulate it.
Rubber.
And this little girl just was storing it up until like 4 days after she was born.
I mean, they finally let us go home, and that was a treat. And then we got here, and we're like, you have to come back in to meet your pediatric person and
Pediatrician.
pediatrician. And then we go there, and she still hasn't gone poop. And he's like, just give it one more day until noon the very next day. This is the day we just came home. And if she still hasn't gone poop, then there might be some bad news. Maybe her sphincter's too small, which is a crazy thing. I read that up on that, and that's a possibility. Very rare, but it does happen. Or, so there's something else going on there. They might have to have a minor surgery or something like that. And Thank goodness before noon the next day, she exploded in her pants.
3 times.
Like 3 times in a row, yeah.
Yeah, so we had to stay at the hospital for originally 2 days because they had to watch her jaundice levels for the Coombs, and then once that was okay, then we had to stay longer because she wasn't passing a movement, and they were afraid it might be a meconium plug,
Yeah.
something like that. And they're like, if that happens,
She pooped
and
at birth, so they were like, probably not that.
Yeah. they're like, if we send you home and it ends up being that, she's gonna throw up, and when you come back, you have to go through the ER. You can't just come up to labor and delivery, and they're like, that would be awful. So we're gonna keep you. She's probably gonna poop any moment. She never did.
Yeah.
And then at the hospital, they did a chest x-ray to see if her intestines were twisted or anything, and they weren't. And then finally they came in and they let us know our options, like you can stay here, we can keep watching her, we can send you home, you might need to come back to the ER, or they give me this next option, and this is kind of like what freaked me out. They're like, okay, we might border you, which means we're no longer here for me anymore as a patient. We're here for Mallory since she's not pooping. And Mallory, because of COVID and everything, is only allowed one visitor, which would be me. And so Matt has to go home. I was just like, wait, what is going on? And that started to freak me out. I'm like, in this situation, I don't want to be by myself. And so like, okay, let me go talk to the doctor and see. And so they go talk. And I'm starting to freak out at this point, thinking I might be alone with my baby. And what if something happens? And then they come in and they're like, hey, you want to go home? And I'm just like, so that was super rushed. They're like, yeah, the tech's waiting for you with a wheelchair. And I'm like, hey, we're not packed. I wanted to get pictures of us. And at this point, my milk comes in. So
She's chilling there and trying to think of a funny analogy, but it all just sounds gross.
so it is like rock hard. It hurts, leaking everywhere.
It's like a faucet.
And so I'm like all hot because I'm trying to hurry and get everything packed. Yeah, super hot. Hot and sweaty. I was gonna say hot and bothered, but it just sounds wrong. Hot and sweaty, trying to get everything hurried and packed. This girl's waiting on us. They made it sound like it was super busy and they wanted to get us out of this room because they needed it. And I'm trying to change her and take pictures of her, and it's night and there's no good lighting, and I can't even wear what I want because I'm just leaking everywhere. It's just a hot mess, super rushed. So anyways, we get down there. Matt brings her car seat in, and we can't figure out the straps. The straps are way too small.
This thing is from another planet.
We can't figure it out. And the girl that wheeled me down doesn't have kids, never used a car seat, doesn't know how to work it either. So they try to call someone down to help us, and they're super busy. So we have to wait a while, and it was chaotic.
Yeah.
And we finally get home. It's like 9:30, I think. Don't have anything unpacked. Our house is a mess, and we didn't go to bed until like 2:30. And
Fun times.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Oh, and we didn't tell them about the lady. The night of her being born, when we got to the hospital, we were the only ones there out of the whole place that was having a child. So like all the nurses were like on top of, like not saying they are on top of it, but all of them were focused on us.
Yeah,
and so got a lot of attention. So it was super nice. But then that night they had like 4 unscheduled deliveries, and like 2 of them were cesarean births and stuff like that. And so there was this lady that did not want an epidural, and my goodness, I thought the hospital was being like invaded by pirates or warriors or something.
It was intense.
Someone was just yelling from down the hall, and I'm like, oh, it's happening, hon. I'm up in the bar the door. Someone's robbing, for some reason, the baby part of the hospital. And she is screaming so loud, just, oh my, it hurts.
It's obnoxious.
And I'm just, oh, no, I'm sorry. And I'm just like, what is going on? And then they went right into the room right next to us, and she's just yelling like, what's even happening down there? Oh, oh! It was so loud.
We're just looking at each other with the biggest eyes.
And I could just see Lindsay like, I'm so glad I did an epidural, because screw that.
Yeah, I said that so many times. I'm like, I will never not get an epidural, because that was, I mean, granted, she was a little dramatic. I know everyone handles pain a little bit different, but with my contractions and stuff, I just tried to breathe through it, and I'd make like weird grunting noises and stuff. I just can't imagine yelling like that. And the poor doctor and nurse is like, ugh.
Yeah, so
such an awkward situation.
It was a very fun experience. Just to kind of skip ahead, probably getting a little long, is after when you start going through your day-to-day routine, something I we had to come to realize real quick, and I think every parent knows this now, is, and those looking to become a parent, is to go back to the lifestyle you once had. It's not really there anymore, and it's not a bad thing. For me, it made me realize, it's just the next stage of life, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can make a new, by the same life, I mean the same routine, the same. I mean, Lindsay and I have been married 5 years, and it's just been me and her. Soon to be
almost
6.
6 or 7? No, 6. Yeah, almost
soon
6.
To be 6
next week.
Yeah,
In a week.
That's crazy. And we just had 2 dogs and us like the whole time, and so it's been a lot about us, and not saying there's I love them. I'm so glad we did that. There's nothing wrong with that, and but you want to go back to that routine that we're so used to for the last 5 years, 6 years, and that's just not something that's going to be there anymore. And don't try to fight it, just accept it and be happy with it, that you got to bring a beautiful thing into the world. It's pretty crazy that 2 people can create another person, and then just be a part of it, and I think for me, really coming to terms with that as quick as possible has really helped me adjust to the new lifestyle that we have now, which I'm not even, let's be honest, doing that much. I mean, I work all day and then I come home and try to be as helpful as possible, but Lindsay's the real trooper here. I'm fresh out of boobs, so.
You have boobs, they just don't like it.
We'll work on that.
Is there any advice you have for dads, like in the hospital, anything you weren't expecting, or?
I obviously wasn't expecting to be there that long, to keep my composure, and I don't want to even say I did very well. That long was kind of rough. I'm hoping that when other dads end up having kids, they won't have the whole COVID thing going on, so they can actually go out and grab some food for both of you and stuff like that, and kind of breath. I didn't even smell air. It felt. I'm not saying it was a prison, but it felt like one in a way, and it was nice to get out and about from that. But kind of when I was explaining it advice-wise, is all you can do is be the best that you can be. Don't get down on yourself, and then apply yourself. Don't just accept that. I'll just be a good father because it'll just come naturally to me. I've always been a big fan of research and reading and understanding, even though it may be the simplest of things. I think 3 times today while holding her, I've read, how do I make her poop faster? How do I make her stop her hiccups? And things I already knew, but maybe I forgot or I could try or haven't tried. And I think continued application is always going to make you a better, not only person, but better at being a parent. So, that's probably what I would say.
Good advice, yeah. For me, what I would recommend, most people probably do this anyways, before you go in, really decide the type of person you are and the environment you like. And that depends on who you're going to invite. I originally thought I'd have Matt, my mom, my mother-in-law, and maybe a sister-in-law or 2. That was the original plan, but because of COVID, obviously I couldn't. I could only have one visitor, and that was Matt. And honestly, I'm so glad it worked out that way, because I get very overwhelmed with people, and I was already very overwhelmed in that situation with just the nurses and the doctor and the anesthesiologist. It was just a lot for me, and Matt was just a person in the background at this point. He knew that I didn't need someone sitting there saying, "Go babe, you got this, you're so strong." He knew I just needed silence and to focus. So decide on, some people like a lot of people there, they want a support system, they want people talking to them. When I'm in pain and I'm trying to focus, that was not for me. So also, I know there's a lot of bad stigma, I guess you'd say, around an epidural, but do your research about it. I don't like when people say it's like a medicated birth and try to make you feel guilty, like you're poisoning your child, because it stays in the epidural space. It does not cross the placenta. It does not reach your child. We have modern medicine for a reason. If you want to do all natural, that's amazing. That's great for you. But there's nothing wrong with getting an epidural. I am so glad I got one, because that made it so I was able to relax. I was able to focus on pushing her out as best as I could. It's kind of hard when your legs are numb. And then I wasn't super exhausted because I wasn't pushing for 50 hours, because I was able to lay her down. And then when she was here, I was able to enjoy it. So I highly recommend an epidural. If you don't want one, that's okay, but don't try to make someone else feel smaller for getting one. Another piece of advice that I would recommend is I'm very compulsive. I like to plan, I like to be prepared, I like to know what I'm walking into. But something that I had heard from a mom that recently had a baby was just go into it with no expectations, I know I could have read books, I could have watched YouTube videos, I could have tried to prepare. But there's so much unknown and every situation is so different that there's no way I could control what was going to happen. And so I feel like if you try to come up with a plan and try to control what's going to happen, you're just setting yourself up for failure and you might be disappointed. So I didn't do any research or anything like that. Literally went into it with no expectations, and I feel like that's one of the reasons it was so successful and why I feel so good about it. I wasn't like, this needs to happen, because who knows what would happen, I can't control my body. I don't know what the situation is going to be. So number one thing that I would tell any future expecting mother is go into it with no expectations, then you can't be let down. So when I first saw Mallory and was first holding her, it was a very overwhelming feeling, and it was very empowering to know that I had just pushed this out and created this. But it was not love at first sight. I did not cry, I didn't feel like that immediate connection. And so I just want, if anybody else has felt that way, or when it's your turn to have your child, if you don't feel that way, I just want you to know it's okay. It's totally normal. I've talked to a couple other people that have felt that same way. They're like, they had me the baby and it's just crying, and I didn't feel that instant relationship, that instant bond, that love. That is normal. I was the same way. And that's kind of how I am in real life anyways. It takes me a while to open up. I'm not real affectionate. I'm not super lovey. And so when I saw her, it didn't click right away. Like you see some pictures or some videos of people just crying and they're like, I knew. And that wasn't me. And that's okay. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. I'm obsessed with my daughter and I love her so much. But it took a little bit to be able to feel that connection with her. So if you don't feel that right away, you're not a horrible mom, you're not an awful person, and it will come. Gotta go feed the baby now.
Yay! We're hoping to come out. Our gym just got closed again. Obviously we're over here in Arizona, and old Ducey put another 30-day ban on all gyms and everything around us, so fun times for everyone. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. We love you guys, and hopefully we can get back to some kind of normalized routine.
And then I'm going to post a video about recovery and like products I use, what I'd recommend, what I didn't use. So I'll be posting a video about my recovery and life after birth.
If you guys would like to see anything that from home, if you guys happen to still be at home and locked up indoors, then let us know in the comments, and we'll totally try to work on something like that too.